Your read-in, I'm going to read you a book. Well, I'm going to read a portion of a book from an author that I really liked when I was a young girl, and her name is Beverly Cleary. She wrote Ramona Quimby, age 8, Ramona and Beezus, but the one that I'm going to read from today is called Henry and the Clubhouse. It's an old book, but it's still really good. I'm going to start in chapter 1, which is called Henry Goes for a Ride. Henry Huggins had a lot of good ideas that fall when he first had his paper route, but somehow his ideas had a way of not turning out as he had planned. Something always went wrong. There was, for example, that Saturday afternoon in October, when Henry found himself with nothing to do until it was time to start delivering journals. Journals is the name of the newspaper. Naturally, he wandered into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator to see what he could find. At the sound of the door opening, his dog Ribsy and his cat Nosy came running in case he should be planning to feed them. "Henry, you just ate lunch," said Mrs. Huggins, who had washed her son's slacks and was now struggling to shove metal stretchers into the legs. I don't know what those are. "Can't you find something to do instead of opening the refrigerator every 5 minutes?" "I'm thinking, Mom," answered Henry. He was thinking that he would like to build something, some kind of a house, a dog house, a tree house, or a clubhouse. A tree house would be pretty hard, but he was sure he could build a dog house or a clubhouse. All he needed was lumber and nails. "Well, think with the refrigerator door shut," suggested Mrs. Huggins with a smile. She had succeeded in stretching Henry's slacks, and now she leaned them, tight on their frames, against the sink. "And please, find something to do." "Okay, Mom," said Henry, and walked out the back door in search of something to keep him busy. He considered. He could go over to the Quimby's house and play checkers with Beezus, a girl whose real name was Beatrice, but her pesky little sister Ramona would probably spoil the game. He could go see if his friend Murph, who was the smartest boy in the whole school, was building anything interesting in his garage. Or he could try to sell subscriptions to the journal. That was what he should do, but somehow Henry was not anxious to start ringing strange doorbells. No, what he really wanted to do was build something. He decided to scout around Klickitat Street and see if he could find enough boards for a doghouse. That would be the easiest to build and would not take much lumber. As Henry walked around the side of his house, he noticed his next-door neighbor's car parked on the driveway with a U-Haul-It trailer attached. Do you know what a U-Haul-It is? If you're moving something, you can rent one, and you can then use it to put stuff in and carry it from one place to another. Now that was interesting, thought Henry. What was Hector Grumby going to haul? The front door of the Grumbys' house opened, and Mr. Grumby appeared to be coming out backwards. This was even more interesting. Why didn't Mr. Grumby walk out frontwards? Bit by bit, more of his neighbor appeared, and Henry saw that he was tugging at something. Henry decided he had better investigate. From the Grumbys' front walk, he discovered that Mr. Grumby was pulling and Mrs. Grumby was pushing a bathtub out of the house. They were sliding it across the floor on an old blanket. Mr. Grumby paused to wipe his forehead. "Whew!" he exclaimed. "These old bathtubs were built like battleships." "May I help?" Henry asked eagerly. After all, his mother wanted him to find something to do. "Sure," said Mr. Grumby. "You can get on the other end and help push." Henry ran up the steps, and because the bathtub was blocking the door, he climbed into it, out the other side, and joined Mrs. Grumby in pushing. Henry was secretly wondering, but was too polite to ask, if the Grumbies were planning to give up bathing. Instead, he inquired, "What are you going to do with it?" "Take it to the dump," answered Mr. Grumby, "unless you would like to have it. We are remodeling the bathroom and have to get rid of it to make room for the new tub, which will be delivered Monday." Henry thought it over. There were all sorts of interesting things he could do with a bathtub in his backyard. Wash his dog Ribsy in it, cool off in it himself on a hot day, bob for apples on Halloween, build a clubhouse around it if he had that much lumber, all sorts of things. A bathtub in the yard would be much more fun than a tub in the bathroom. But Henry was sure his mother would not feel the same way about it. "No, thank you, Mr. Grumby," Henry said with regret, and then he had a better idea. The new bathtub would come in a crate, and perhaps Mr. Grumby would let him have the boards to build a doghouse. By that time, several neighbors had come over to the Grumbies to watch. Even Ribsy had taken an interest and had come down from the Huggins doormat where he had been napping. Remember, Ribsy is Henry's dog. Mr. Grumby tied a rope around the tub, and with the help of Henry and the bystanders who hung on to the rope, eased the tub, bump, 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 down the front steps, slid it across the lawn, and then boosted it onto the trailer, where Mr. Grumby tied it securely. Can't you just see that in your mind? The bathtub coming down the steps, making that noise, bump, 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 and then he'd have to drag it across the lawn, or slide it. Okay, back to the book. "Want to go for a ride to the dump?" Mr. Grumby asked Henry. "The dump?" Immediately, Henry pictured a fascinating jumble of old bathtubs, washing machines, tires, and baby buggies. There was no telling what he might find at the dump. There might even be some old boards that he could bring home. "Can I ride in the bathtub?" he asked eagerly. "Sure," Mr. Grumby was agreeable. "Go ask your mother." Henry ran to the open kitchen window. "Hey, Mom! Mr. Grumby wants me to ride to the dump with him. Can I go?" "All right, Henry." Mrs. Huggins' voice came through the window. "Come on, Ribsy." Henry bounded across the lawn and climbed into the bathtub. Ribsy scrambled in behind him. "All set?" asked Mr. Grumby, opening the door of his car. And that's where I'm going to stop. So you need to go to the library and look up Beverly Cleary and look for the book Henry and the Clubhouse to find out what happens. What do you think happens at the dump? Do you think that Henry finds something good? I can tell you that Beverly Cleary always comes up with good adventures for her characters. And they always sound like fun, and they're funny. So I would really urge you to check this book out. Hope you enjoy the rest of your read-in day, and I hope to see you guys again soon sometime in person. Bye.